When members of the House of Representatives, as I said, try to change the results of the electors in various states, is that a crime? Well, why isn't that a crime? So the only crime is when Donald Trump, a candidate, picks up the phone and says, find me some votes. Can you find me some votes? Georgia prosecutors considering racketeering and conspiracy charges against Trump in 2020. Now let me just set it up this way. Let's say President Trump made a call and he does say to somebody, the Speaker of the House or whomever, can you find some extra votes for me? Can you find? The word find is not a criminal word. The word find does not mean he wants somebody to create a crime or commit a crime. The word find can be, can you do another recount and see if I won? He didn't say, change the numbers so I won. He said, can you find other numbers? Now, that's number one. Number two, why is this a crime under state or federal law? Well, because he's interfering with an election, Mark. He's obstructing. No, he's not. As I've said here before, and for some reason, people do not accept this. This is the book we govern ourselves by. This one, the Constitution. Congress makes the final determination on electors. Congress, state legislatures make the initial determination, not judges. U.S. attorneys in the Department of Justice or district attorneys have no say. Unless somebody's bribed or something like that, a straightforward crime. But if somebody's saying, find me some electors, that's not racketeering. That's not a conspiracy. That's not a criminal matter. These matters go to the House of Representatives and the Senate at the end of the process, who look it over. If people have objections from Georgia or other states, they raise the objections. Congress looks at the electors and determines whether they were chosen legitimately or not. That's not for unelected U.S. attorneys and elected Democrat district attorneys to determine. Otherwise, why is it that House members in the 2006 election, 2004 election rather, why is it that they objected to George Bush's election? Are they interfering with the election? No, because they can do that because they're involved in the final say. Why is it that in 2016 when Trump won, Jamie Raskin and others, Benny Thompson, they got up and challenged the election results in some of the states? Why is it that that wasn't a crime? Because Congress makes the final determination, that's why. So why is it that if a president of the United States calls somebody in Georgia and says, can you find me additional votes? Why is that a crime? Because it's not. And yet this is the path that we're on. Every single former federal prosecutor on TV and others have said this is the serious case, Georgia, and of course, Washington, which I'm not going to get to today. We don't have time. But why is the Georgia case the serious case if you understand the Constitution and what went on in Georgia? Why is that the serious case? Because former federal prosecutors look at it in their own myopic vision as a criminal code matter, whether it's state or federal law. And here's Mark citing the Constitution on how we choose electors and count electors and pick a president. And somehow people like me, I'm an outlier? I don't think so. Let's take a look at this. PBS. Go.
This week might bring an historic and high-stakes moment, what would be the first ever indictment of a former president. Former President Donald Trump says he expects to be arrested this week on possible charges from the Manhattan District Attorney related to the Stormy Daniels case. Lisa Desjardins has been following this and other Trump cases and joins me now. Good to see you.
Hi. So I want to take our viewers through these cases, think of them in terms of location and the types of prosecutors involved. Let's start in Fulton County, Georgia. This is the next case that we expect perhaps in terms of time. This is a local...
See the question? Did Trump try to overturn 2020 results in Georgia? You're actually allowed to try and quote unquote overturn in a close election, and I don't mean overturn illegally by paying people off. I mean, hey, Frank, can you find additional votes there in Georgia? That is a perfect, normal political call. I hate to tell you that, but it is. It's certainly not a crime. And so did he try to overturn the 2020 results in Georgia? And then, of course, depending on what happens in Georgia, Congress has the final say. You don't criminalize this stuff. Now let's listen to how she discusses it. I haven't heard it. Go.
And for the Fulton County, the question there, did President Trump try to overturn the 2020 results in Georgia? Charges there could include things like election felonies, racketeering. This is the case that we talked about the grand jury meeting on. The grand jury filed its report in this case to the prosecutor there 2 months ago. We're waiting for the prosecutor to...
So the Georgia grand jury should never have been put together. Really, technically, there is no issue for a criminal grand jury. And the grand jury hasn't heard a word that I just told you. Nothing. Because the local Democrat hack elected prosecutor out of Atlanta has no idea what I'm talking about. And even if she did, she wouldn't raise it with the grand jury. This is a huge problem. The constitutional illiteracy that is so widespread at the highest ranks of this country. And the obsession with criminalizing politics against Republicans, particularly Trump. Go ahead.
Her decision, and that is expected soon. That is the Fulton County, Georgia case. There's a national case that also is...
So let's stop here. Her decision. So she gets to decide. An elected local Democrat prosecutor from Atlanta. She gets to decide if there'll be charges, because everybody knows the prosecutor basically controls the grand jury. So when she decided to trigger the appointment of a grand jury, she already knew the process that she was triggering. And again, in my view, an utterly inappropriate process. Why were the Democrat lawyers in Georgia prior to the election? Anybody know? To change the election rules. Why? To try and elect Joe Biden. Is that a crime? No, because those aren't the results, but it affects the results. Is it a crime? And when members of the House of Representatives, as I said, tried to change the results of the electors in various states, is that a crime? Well, why isn't that a crime? So the only crime is when Donald Trump, a candidate, picks up the phone and says, find me some votes. Can you find me some votes? He didn't say change votes. He didn't say buy votes. He didn't say anything that suggests a crime. Find me some votes. And he's told, well, we can't really find them, you know. So that's enough of this. So, and then we have the Manhattan DA. And of course, everybody has told the Manhattan DA publicly that he's a fraud and a phony and a Soros appointee. And I've gone through these issues a few times in the various platforms I'm on, so I won't go through them again. The bottom line is it's bogus in 1,000 different ways. And that the motivation of this prosecutor is obvious. He's a Soros prosecutor, and he won't put real criminals in prison. You might recall that gentleman who had a bodega or a small grocery store, and he was being held up by a thug. And he wound up stabbing the thug, and the thug died. He stabbed him in the neck. After the thug pushed him, and his girlfriend was there, and this prosecutor sent him right off to prison. He got an arraignment as he was waiting for trial, and the public was furious because luckily it was caught on video. Thankfully, it was caught on video, and the man was defending himself. Well, of course, the Republicans want to take a look at this. Good for them. The House Republicans want to take a look at this prosecutor because they want to know if Soros influenced him. They want to know if the Department of Justice influenced him. They want to know what's going on. Now, why? Is it just because they're chasing their tails? No. Because one of the lead prosecutors in this case, who specifically came into this office to investigate Donald Trump, his name's Pomerantz, took no money, but signed a book deal. And throughout his book, he says he took the job because he wanted to jail Trump. He wanted to convict Trump. You're a prosecutor. You're not supposed to come to a case with that kind of a mindset. Even if you do, you keep your mouth shut. But you're really supposed to recuse yourself and step aside. This guy was looking for a job. He was a federal prosecutor. He was making a lot of money. He was looking for a job in the DA's office to get Trump. And then while the investigation's still going, he writes a book about all this stuff. To me, he should be disbarred. And I've said this on Fox, I've said it elsewhere. His ethical violations are numerous. But notice the bar in New York won't touch him. If it were Rudy Giuliani, they'd try and, take his entire career away.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.